Welcome. Yes. And we'll get to hear some more from her this morning. So what a wonderful morning to be here with you in person and for those of you online. Thank you so much for joining the Church of the Beatitudes. And there are so many ways that you can connect with us. The first is you can reach out to Janelle through our website and sign up for our newsletter. The important thing about our newsletter, though, is you actually have to open it to see how to connect to the Church of the Beatitudes. And if you don't like emails, like I don't like emails, I check things out on social media. So you can check us out on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. YouTube is our repository of past sermons, interviews, podcasts, and all of those wonderful things. And then, of course, you can connect to our podcasts. We have 2 different podcasts. You can tune in live, or you can watch and listen to recordings later. So we are in between a sermon series. And the great thing about being in between something is we have a little bit of freedom to stretch, to get out the kinks, to kind of breathe a little bit differently, and to try some new things on. The good thing is it's not always permanent. We're just trying something on, kind of like, our clothes after COVID-19. And so join us, and I hope you truly enjoy the message that we have coming for you today, the Thanksgiving address that is going to be delivered to you today, and the music that we have. So welcome, and it is wonderful to be here. I know I've said that like a lot, but I really, truly mean it. It is so good to be here with you this morning. What better way to hear that music live? Thank you. We're going to read a version of the Mohawk prayer, the Thanksgiving address today. And we're going to break it down into two parts. And so we're going to open with this first part. This translation of the Mohawk version of the Thanksgiving address was developed and published in 1993 and has been provided for public viewing, courtesy of the Six Nations Indian Museum and Tracking Project. This Thanksgiving address is at heart an invocation of gratitude, but it is also a material and scientific inventory of our natural world. I believe that you can't listen to the entirety of the Thanksgiving address without feeling a sense of wealth. While expressing gratitude seems so innocent, it's actually a very revolutionary idea. And in a consumer society, sitting and paying attention and giving gratitude is a form of contentment, and that too is a radical proposition. And you could just be passive. You can let the words and the time flow by. But in reality, at some point, you do have to concentrate. And when you are concentrating, listening, and knowing that part of this Thanksgiving address normally, when we're able to be maskless and to reply back, is an opportunity for us to share in unison. Now our minds are one. When we look at a Thanksgiving address, we have to recognize that actually recognizing abundancy rather than scarcity is such a true gift that we can provide to ourselves and to our community. It really does become the good medicine for the land and the people that you meet. Now join me in listening and concentrating to the words of the first part of this Thanksgiving address. The people. Today we have gathered and see that the cycles of life continue. We've been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all the living things. So now we bring our minds together as one, and we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. And now our minds are one. We are thankful to our mother, the earth, for she gives us all that we need for life. She supports our feet as we walk upon her, and it gives us joy that she continues to care for us as she has from the very beginning of time. To our mother, we send you greetings and blessings. We give thanks to all the waters of the world for quenching our thirst and providing us with strength. Water is life. We know its power in many forms, from waterfalls and rain, monsoon storms, mists and streams, rivers and oceans. So with one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the spirit of our water. We turn our minds to all the fish life in the water. They were instructed to cleanse and purify the water. They also give themselves to us as food. We are grateful that we can still find pure water, and they can as well. So now we turn to the fish and we send out our greetings and our thanks. Now we turn towards the vast fields of plant life. As far as the eye can see, the plants grow, working so many wonders. They sustain many life forms. And with our minds gathered together, we give thanks and look forward to seeing plant life for all of the generations to come. And with one mind, we turn to honor and thank all the food plants we harvest in the garden. Since the beginning of time, these grains and vegetables and beans and berries have helped people survive So many other living things also draw strength from them. We gather all the plant foods together as one, and we send them a greeting of thanks. Now we turn to all the medicine herbs of the world. From the very beginning, they were instructed to take away sickness, and they were always waiting and ready to help us heal. We are happy that they are still among us, and those special few who remember how to use these plants for healing. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the medicines and the keepers of our medicines. We gather our minds together to send greeting and thanks to all the animal life in the world. They have many things to teach us people. We are honored by them because they can give their lives so we may use the bodies for our people. We see them near our homes and deep into the forests and deserts, and we are glad that they are still here and hope that they will always be here. For now, our minds are one. The trees. We now turn our thoughts to all of the trees. The earth has so many families of trees who have left their instructions for their use. Some provide us with shelter and shade, and others with fruits and beauty and other numerous useful things. Many people of the world use the tree as a symbol of peace and strength. With one mind, we greet and we thank tree life. Now our minds are one.
To stand in the gap, to be aware of a need and then fill it. This is what informed Jesus' actions. His words in today's scripture to his disciples remind us of that in-between space. My space is in between the Thanksgiving prayer that Ellie just shared and the musician's next anthem. Brief, yes, but I'm aware of its significance. As you listen to these words, where do you find your in-between space? Matthew 25, verse 35. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me.
Teach me stillness as the grasses I sit did find. Teach me humility as blossoms are humbled, humbled with thanksgiving. Teach me courage as the tree which stands alone. Teach me freedom as the eagle which soars, in the sky. In the sky.
I would like to open the message this morning with a land acknowledgement. We are currently gathering on Maricopa, Akimel, Thanaatam, Pima, and Thanaatam lands. And I want to recognize this because I think we need to extend our humble gratitude for those folks being stewards of the land for all of our time here. So here we are between those sermon series. The last one was a second part of a 3-part series on evolution. And the next one is going to be examining a deeply held ritual from Christian denominations. And so I get the freedom to be the in-between. I went to Lutheran Theological Seminary of Philadelphia, and during my time there, I earned a C in a class called The Art of Worship. And it had a colon and lots of words after that because that's academia. But for now, it's The Art of Worship. I'll spare you the details of all of the things that we learned in that class, but I do want to let you know that it has deeply transformed the way that I approach being up here in front of you. It helped me to think about Christianity differently and the practices of punishment and forgiveness, love and healing, and art and ritual. Now, in all fairness, when my professor told me about the C, he didn't know I wasn't actually an overachiever, and I was just happy to have gotten that C. He shared that he believed that while I wasn't exactly grabbing the concept of what he was trying to make connections to that semester, he knew that I was on to something and encouraged me to continue to examine that. And he also knew that I would enjoy that journey of discovering what ritual might be for not only just me, but the communities I find myself in. And so here we are. You are on whatever 365 times 12 years is, of how many times I think about the role of ritual in our lives. So to bridge the in-between, today I want us to look at the evolution of our rituals pre-COVID and now during COVID. 2020 transformed us in so many ways, and we're going to continue to discover those for probably hundreds of years. And throughout the past 16 months, we were witness to the desire from many of us to learn more about viruses and how they're spread, to learn more about what defunding the police means and could look like. And we were also witnessing the journey of what learning and working from home could look like for the rest of time. And of course, we were relearning more about mutual aid practices and how to care for one another while we were apart. We witnessed marches. We witnessed the benefits of full access to universal health care with free COVID tests and vaccinations. We witnessed the growth of people's ability to survive because they were finally getting a livable wage and not having to work 2 to 3 jobs to maintain that. We witnessed an evolution of thought of really realizing how deeply connected we are and impacted we are by racism and capitalism and genderism. And finally, we were witness to how to live in a world where we clearly chose who was essential and who was not. So for the rest of today, reflecting on that, I encourage you to think a little bit more deeply about what rituals you held onto this past year. What was the point of practicing those rituals in isolation? And then what changed for you? I've been asking many of my friends and mentors, poor Pastor Tony, about what has changed in their lives in regards to ritual. Where were they finding comfort, and how were they practicing that ritual? Many of them would very openly share with me that they began to question ritual, at least the ones that we had practiced together before. Because for whatever reason, practicing them alone or in isolation had them really discerning what the rituals were meant for and who they were meant for. And all of this, they were recognizing that living in the midst of a COVID, racial, and economic pandemic was just sometimes too much. And then together, we asked the larger question of, again, what is ritual for? How does it influence the way we think and feel and act? And where does the meaning come from? While also trying to understand the influences of our own upbringing, our homes, our people, into the meaning of ritual. And then we practice this alone. What does it mean to practice something alone? Philosophers have called that state of isolation and disconnection that we experience collectively in 2020 as species loneliness. A deep, unnamed sadness stemming from estrangement from the rest of creation, from our loss of relationship, from our loss of communal ritual. Indigenous elders have said that ceremonies or rituals are the way we remember to remember. So how are we going to remember 2020 and 2021, especially when so many of us were, again, alone and separated? So to help me answer these questions as if there could be an answer, I actually was thinking very deeply about this when sitting in on all of our Zoom services and gatherings. And I realized that maybe ritual started with that. The actual slowing down, paying attention, and listening. I also started reading Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass during that time. And so many of you have heard me refer to that book so much of late. It's because I'm revisiting it, and it has a different meaning. And in this text, she shares examples time and time again of how Mother Nature gives us examples of not only what evolution looks like, but what ritual practice could be like in relationship with ourselves and with the earth and all that inhabit it. And how that too, that practice of ritual can evolve. And it begins with the mentioning of the Thanksgiving address. The definition of ritual from Oxford Dictionary actually comes from the Latin rituus. And as a noun, it is a religious or a solemn act. It's a social practice or even a conventional act. And since that class, and during some of the popularity of our social media sites in the last 5 or 6 years, I've actually wondered, what is the difference between ritual and habit? Does checking our email or social media accounts first thing in the morning while we're still in bed, perhaps in the bathroom, maybe even at our table drinking some coffee, is that what counts as feeling right and settled in the world? Were those things our rituals? Does being connected to and through technology count as a conventional act? And I asked that broader question today because of late I've been seeing memes, which are little pictures with words or sometimes dancing people. I guess those are GIFs or GIFs, I don't know. And I've been on social media and I've been seeing those memes, and a lot of them have been asking, what are our morning routines look like? What do they look like? And how do they influence the way that we move throughout the world for the rest of our day? So again, going back to last year and reading through Braiding Sweetgrass and sitting in on our Zoom meetings, I began to understand the practice of ritual as something that we do to feel right and settled in the world. And if ritual is indeed about helping us feel right and settled in the world, are we practicing that ritual out of fear? Fear of the unknown? And if that's the case, or even partly the case, what impact does practicing that ritual have on us individually and collectively? What rituals are we holding on to that may not benefit the whole of us? According to Robin Wall Kimmerer, she says, from an indigenous perspective, rituals, large and small, practiced alone or together, have the power to focus attention to a way of living awake in the world. They come to be a vehicle to belonging and to family and to a people and to land and to something sometimes unexplainable. We as a church community have come to believe that the power of ritual can marry the mundane to the sacred. And we can see that in the way that a church service is conducted every Sunday to the Lord's Prayer. I believe that many of us communally practice these rituals in order to connect not only to the sacred and to one another, but to that thing bigger and broader than we can even comprehend. If we do indeed believe that ritual can transcend the boundaries of individual and community and actually have a larger impact, that can actually resonate beyond our human realm. And then our rituals, if all of that is the case, if we can share our ritual and it moves beyond the human realm, then that's pretty powerful. That can magnify our lives. Robin Wall Kimmerer says, ritual can help us focus our attention so that our attention becomes our intention. Let's say that one more time. Ritual can help focus our attention so that our attention can become our intention. And if you stand together to profess a thing before your community, then you can be held gently accountable. But does that really work? Professing something, practicing a ritual in community, does that actually hold us gently accountable to an intention? Perhaps has ritual lost its meaning, and if so, what are we doing to give it back? Last week, Pastor Tony talked about Carpe Diem. I was a huge Dead Poets Society fan. It came out when I was in high school. I saw it more times than imaginable. It encouraged me to be a teacher and a poet. And whenever passwords became a thing on email, Carpe Diem was my password. It became my ritual to type in all the time. And it became my ritual to think about Carpe Diem as in every time I woke up and I thought about it or I typed it into the computer that I was going to seize the day. Until it just became muscle memory. So how do we ensure that our ritual doesn't lose meaning for us? Again, what reading Braiding Sweetgrass and the conversations I've had with others has taught me about ritual is that maybe we just need to start first with the slow down and listen. To pay attention to the lives around us. To pay attention to the trees and the birds, to the water, to the rain clouds and lightning bolts. To pay attention to the person who is standing on a street corner asking for water or change. To pay attention to the person coming out of prison with no place to go. And to pay attention to the people who garden our foods locally or in the next state over. And to pay attention to those on the freeways that drive that food to where we can actually have access. Listening and standing witness to ritual creates an openness to the world in which boundaries between us can dissolve in a raindrop. But what happens after we participate and practice that ritual? Do we slow down enough to listen and allow ourselves to be open enough to where boundaries can become invisible? And how can we ensure that the result of participating in a ritual doesn't lead us to, or does, I should say, lead us to what today's scripture encourages us to do? To feed the hungry, to know that water is life, and to welcome the stranger to where the boundaries between us dissolve like raindrops. Matthew 25 teaches us that how we welcome the stranger into our midst is literally how we treat religion itself, our faith. In the New Testament, the stranger and all who are vulnerable are at the very heart of the gospel. And in particular, in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus offers a vision for which caring for people is the defining mark of God's kingdom. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. And I was a stranger, and you invited me in. This vision and the acts of standing witness to the ritual of caring for one another actually can reimagine the humanity and even the dignity within humans, just as Jesus demonstrated for us. Jesus asked us to evolve our understanding of one another and the things that we were a part of to be something bigger than ourselves. And throughout the New Testament, he introduced us to the reimagining and the evolution of ritual. I'd also like to think a possible take on these very commonly used verses is the creation of a new ritual. The connecting the everyday of the feeding, the drinking, and the welcoming that can connect us to that larger idea of God's kingdom. And I wonder, in the reimagining of this ritual, can we actually participate or practice it in a way that will help us be in right relationships with ourselves, with one another, with Mother Earth, and of course with the sacred and the divine, to see that we are indeed all linked in a co-evolutionary cycle. For what could ritual look like if we just remembered that we all belong? What if we had a practice of a ritual that allowed us to move beyond the binary of being good to just living in a world where just being is good enough? Ritual can be the basis for reflection and for slowing down, but it can also be the basis for action, intention, as Kimmerer says. And remember earlier, Indigenous elders said to us that rituals are a way for us to remember to remember. So again, I ask you, how are we going to remember 2020 and 2021? And when we do remember these years, can we see and gain comfort in knowing that the way we lived before 2020 has now finally ended? It is done. We cannot go back. Because now it is time for us to reconnect and reimagine our practice of rituals that don't serve ourselves and our communities. And friends, that's okay, because we can develop and evolve along with ritual. We are entering a new era of responsibility, which requires all of us to be more socially minded human beings with the potential for a more and new participatory practice of love, hope, healing, and ritual that are filled with care and community. And rituals, that we experience, while they are uniquely our own, we all don't take communion and feel the same way. We all don't participate in the breathing exercises I guide us in periodically and get the same thing from it. And that too is okay. Because collectively we can actually look at not only our intentions or what we walk away from ritual with to be ours, we can look at what those rituals can be for the rest of the world, so that we can help to alleviate the suffering of others to the very best of our ability. Our remembering of COVID-19 and the other pandemics I mentioned can also include the understanding that the wondrous things that we've had in life have always happened parallel to the terrible. Yes, indeed, there were people who were finally getting a living wage, but we also lost millions of lives because they passed away from COVID or COVID adjacent. We know that the evolution of a society that is based on people experiencing their creativity in the midst of devastation can actually be one of the greatest historical contributions of humankind. And with those powerful words found in Matthew 25:35, Jesus poses a challenge to us that causes us to see the ritual of welcoming can be done with compassionate eyes. And if we were to take those words seriously, we can no longer be able to gather around food-filled tables and offer praises and prayers without also examining our hearts to discern what we can do better to serve the poor and the marginalized. A species and a culture that develops and practices rituals that treat the natural world with respect and reciprocity will surely pass on those genes to generations with a much higher frequency than the people who destroy it. For if our rituals are empty with no meaning, or if they become just performative, or they are practiced out of fear, then perhaps that is what will continue in our world. Our relationships to the sacred, to the divine, to ourselves and to one another will be marked by fear and emptiness if any of those things can happen. And if we end up practicing our rituals out of a space of fear, then, friends, how poor do we become? And finally, Robin Wall Kimmerer shares with us that our rituals have the power to open the way to living in gratitude and amazement at the richness and generosity of the world and its people. Rituals that bestow our own gifts in kind to celebrate that kinship with the world can actually help to choose and feed and welcome those who are without. Let us evolve. Let's let our rituals evolve. Let's seek to feed, to provide water, and to welcome our strangers. Amen.
the joy of living. If you see no reason for giving thanks, the fault lies within you.
The inventory of gratitude continues, bringing our minds together as one and connecting. The birds. We put our minds together as one and thank all the birds who move and fly about over our heads. The Creator gave them beautiful songs, and each day they remind us to enjoy and appreciate life. The eagle was chosen to be their leader. To all the birds, from the smallest to the largest, we send our joyful greetings and thanks. And now our minds are one. We are thankful to the powers we know as the four winds. We hear their voices in the moving air as they refresh us and purify the air we breathe. They help us to bring the change of seasons. From the four directions they come, bringing us messages and giving us strength. One with mind, and we send our greetings and thanks to the four winds. The thunderers. Now we turn to the west, where our grandfathers, the thunder beings, live. With lightning and thundering voices, they bring with them the water that renews life. We are thankful that they keep those evil things made by Osiris's underground. We bring our minds together as one to send greetings and thanks to our grandfathers, the thunderers. We now send greetings and thanks to our eldest brother, the sun. Each day, without fail, he travels the sky from east to west, bringing the light of a new day. He is the source of all the fires of life. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to our brother, the sun. We put our minds together to give thanks to our oldest grandmother, the moon, who lights the nighttime sky. She is the leader of women all over the world, and she governs the movement of the ocean tides. By her changing face, we measure time, and it is the moon who watches over the arrival of children here on earth. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to our grandmother, the moon. We give thanks to the stars who are spread across the sky like jewelry. We see them in the night, helping the moon to light the darkness and bringing dew to the gardens and growing things. When we travel at night, they guide us home. With our minds gathered together as one, we send greetings and thanks to the stars. We gather our minds to greet and thank the enlightened teachers who have come to help throughout the ages. When we forget how to live in harmony, they remind us of the way we were instructed to live as people. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to these caring teachers. And now we turn our thoughts to the Creator, or Great Spirit, and send greetings and thanks for all the gifts of creation. Everything we need to live a good life is here on this Mother Earth. For all the love that is still around us, we gather our minds together as one and send our choicest words of greetings and thanks to the Creator. And now our minds are one.
How can you buy the sons and daughters, for all things are connected, for all things are connected. We did not weave the web of life. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely
Stephen, what was the name of that song?
Earth song.
Earth Song. What better way to send forth a group of people than through poetry? And this poem today is by poet Joy Hotto. Remember the sky that you were born under and know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon, know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn, that is the strongest point of our time. And remember the sundown and giving the night away. Remember your birth and how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father, he is you also. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth, we are earth. Remember the plants and the trees and the animal life who all have their tribes and their families and their histories and their stories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are living poems. Remember the wind and her voice, for she knows the origin of the universe. Remember you were all people, and all people are you. Remember, you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember, all is in motion and is growing and is you. And remember that language comes from this. Remember the dance language is, that life is. Remember. Friends, we have now arrived at a place where we end our words and all the things that we have named. It was not my intention to leave anything out. So if something was forgotten, we leave it to each of you. to send such greetings and thanks and practice of ritual in your own way. For now, our minds are one.